Hey everyone, I never imagined that I would end up in this situation, but here I am, Sarah, 27 years old, and I have been the one keeping my family together for the past few years. It's a long story, but I will keep it brief and clarify that this has been coming for a long time, and I can't keep it in. When I was 22, my dad lost his job, and the factory where he worked closed, which led to a whole set of issues. My mom, who had always worked part-time jobs, was diagnosed with a condition that prevented her from continuing to work. Being the oldest, I took it upon myself to help out financially. At first, it was just small things, like paying the rent or covering some medical bills. However, as time went on, the burden increased, and I ended up taking on 3 jobs to keep us afloat because my dad was unable to find another job and my mom had health problems. I did all of this without complaining, at least not in front of them. I felt that I was the responsible one, and I thought it was my responsibility to keep my family together. I sometimes gave up sleep, my social life, and even my health to keep things going, but it felt right. Then there's my brother Kevin, who is now 24 years old and has always been. He is the family's baby, but I don't mean that in a cute, endearing way. He is the type of guy who expects everyone to do things for him without asking for anything in return. He left college a few years ago, saying it wasn't for him, but instead of using his time productively, he just kind of existed. He never found a job, didn't help out around the house, and didn't seem to care that I was working myself into the ground just to pay the bills. After a 12-hour shift, I would return home to find him relaxing in the living room with his friends or playing video games. He dared to pretend that nothing was wrong, and when I asked him why he wasn't seeking employment, he would always say, "I'm taking a break or the economy is tough right now," and my parents didn't see anything wrong and didn't pressure him to do anything since they were preoccupied with their issues, and to be honest, it was easier for them to let me handle things. Sarah would always take care of it. However, this time, Kevin went too far. A few months prior, I was already overburdened, so I took on a 4th job to keep us from going bankrupt, and to be honest, I was barely making ends meet. One day, after a long 16-hour workday, I returned home to find Kevin sitting at the kitchen table, looking smug. I could tell something wasn't right, so I asked him what was going on. He didn't immediately respond. Instead, he scrolled through some pages on his phone before putting it down and saying, "I need your help. I bought a new car, and I need you to pay for it." I froze. A new car? What was he talking about, Kevin? Are you insane? I asked, not even trying to hide anything. You don't even have a job, so how could you buy a car, and why in the world would you think I'd pay for it? He simply shrugged, acting like it wasn't a big deal. I took out a loan for it, and it's a good deal. I've needed a car for a while, and I won't keep waiting for someone to take care of everything for me. I was completely stunned. You took out a loan, Kevin, which is crazy. You don't have a job, and you're asking me to pay for your. I know you have the money, so just pay it off, I'll pay you back. I swear, you think I have money to spare, but I snapped. I've been taking care of this family by doing everything I can, and you're just wasting it on things you don't need. Kevin's expression changed to one of defensiveness. I'm not asking you for a handout, you're my sister. Doing nothing, you're unemployed, and now you want me to pay for your car loan? No, Kevin, this is too far. Of course, Kevin didn't take no for an answer, and he began arguing with me, accusing me of being resentful and calling me selfish because I wasn't interested in his life decisions. He claimed that he was attempting to be independent by purchasing the car and that I would assist him if I cared about him at all. Sarah, you always act like you're the one who has it hardest in the family. Kevin said, glaring at me, I get it, you work hard, but I'm trying to better myself. You can't just keep holding me back. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I had put my dreams on hold and sacrificed so much for my family that this was how things had come to this point. He treated me like his personal ATM, expecting me to fix his mess. I left the kitchen that night, my head spinning, not wanting to deal with this any longer. The following day, I had to return to work, but before I left, I told my parents about Kevin's loan, thinking they would realize how ridiculous it was and perhaps help me persuade him to be more responsible. To my surprise, though, they sided with him. Sarah, you should help him. My mom said, he's trying to be independent, but you know how difficult things are for him right now. My dad added, you can't just turn your back on family, you have the money, so why not just help them? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. These were my parents, the same people who had depended on me for years, the ones I had been generously helping, and now they were asking me to enable. I was furious about Kevin's careless behavior, and I left the house that morning with the decision that I was done. I wasn't going to continue to let Kevin deplete me financially and emotionally, and I wasn't going to continue to pay for their mistakes, so I stopped giving them any money. I stopped paying the rent, the bills, and even helping with groceries. It felt harsh and cold, but I didn't care because I had been taken. I woke up this morning to 30 missed calls. I stared at the screen, staring at the string of calls from my parents and Kevin. My stomach dropped, knowing what this was about. They must have finally realized that I wasn't going to back down. I took a deep breath to calm myself before calling my mom, whose number rang twice before she answered. "Where have you been, Sarah? Why aren't you answering your phone?" I asked. "Kevin is upset, and we need to talk about this." I felt my anger rising, but I forced myself to remain composed. "Mom, I've been at work all day, just like I have for the past 5 years. I told you that I wouldn't help Kevin with his car by myself. And I didn't change my mind." There was a lengthy pause on the other end. "But Sarah, you don't realize that Kevin is working so hard to repay us. All we need is a little time. He's 24 years old, acting like a teenager, has no job, no responsibilities, and is relying on me to clean up his mess. It's not my job to save him every time he makes a foolish decision. You're his sister," my mom protested, "so you're supposed to be there for him. You've always been the one to help. Why are you turning your back on him?" There was another long silence during which I could hear my mother's quiet, disappointed sigh. "I don't know what happened to you, Sarah. You used to be so independent." I told him that I'm no longer enabling him because I've been working my ass off for years, putting myself last while Kevin gets to do whatever he wants. Kevin needs to learn that life doesn't work like that and that he needs to take responsibility and get a job like everyone else. Kind and willing to help, now you're just cold. I felt guilty, but it passed quickly when I remembered all I had given up. "I'm not being cold, Mom, I'm being practical. I've been supporting this family for years, and it's time for Kevin to start growing up. I won't keep carrying him, you'll regret it." My mother said, her voice slightly shattering. "Hyun's family. You can't just leave the family." I said in a quieter, but still firm voice as I was leaving. "Mom, I'm not going to keep paying for Kevin's mistakes. I can't do it anymore. He needs to get a job and face the consequences of his actions if he wants to be treated like an adult." The conversation came to an end in silence, and although I wasn't satisfied, I knew that I had said everything I needed to, that the ball was in their court now. The following few days were spent working as usual and ignoring the incessant texts and calls from Kevin and my parents. It wasn't always easy, and I occasionally felt bad, but I kept in mind that I was acting in everyone's best interests. In the end, Kevin needed to reach his lowest point to realize that he couldn't continue to rely on me indefinitely. Perhaps then, he would realize that life didn't owe him anything. Anything? A few days later, I received a text from my mother, which made me feel cold. "Sarah, Kevin went to the bank today and took out a second loan. He said, 'It's your responsibility now, you need to pay up, you owe him.'" My heart stopped. I read the message repeatedly, thinking I might have misunderstood. But it was as awful as it sounded. Kevin had gone to the bank and put the car in my name without asking or consulting me. This was the ultimate betrayal, and I didn't waste any time in calling the bank. After explaining the situation, they confirmed that Kevin had indeed taken out another loan and was trying to transfer the car loan into my name. They informed me that, as the loan's co-signer, I was legally liable for the payments unless I could provide evidence that I had not consented to it. I was so angry and frustrated that I felt sick to my stomach. I couldn't believe Kevin had done this. I had repeatedly told him no, and he had ignored me. It wasn't just careless, it was manipulative. He knew that I had always stepped up to help. And now he was attempting to trick me into paying for his poor decisions. I texted back, "Furious, you think I'm going to pay for since you're my sister, Sarah, and have always supported me, you can't just abandon me now. I didn't do anything wrong, you took out a loan without asking me, and now you're attempting to put it in my name. This is not just Irish, Kevin, you've gone too far. I'm not paying your loan. If you want that car, you're going to have to figure it out on your own." His response came almost immediately. "It's illegal and irresponsible," and I felt the adrenaline pumping through my veins as I considered how to react. He was going too far, and I had sacrificed everything for this family over the past few years, and this was the thanks I was deceived and manipulated into giving. The following day, I went to the bank in person and began the process of removing myself from the. I was determined to ensure that Kevin could no longer rely on me as his safety net, even though I knew it would be difficult and take time. However, I was unprepared for what happened when I received a call from Kevin that evening. This time, his voice sounded different, desperate. "Sarah, please help me. I've messed up so badly that I don't know what to do. I need you." So I paused, hovering my finger over the phone so I could feel the guilt starting to creep in again, but I knew deep down that I couldn't go back this time. I apologized to Kevin, and I said in a steady voice, "You need to take responsibility for your mistakes. I'm not bailing you out anymore, it's time for you to grow up." That's when I heard Kevin's voice crack. For the first time, I had ever heard him sound so vulnerable and human, and for a split second, I nearly. It wasn't easy, it was heartbreaking, but I knew it was the right thing to do that night as I lay in bed and stared at my phone, waiting for another message or call. I wasn't prepared for what would come next, the calls and the texts. My phone had been buzzing all night, but I didn't waver. I said, "Night," and I couldn't ignore the sick feeling in my stomach. I had anticipated a response from my parents and Kevin, but this was different. I got out of bed in an attempt to get rid of the butterflies in my stomach, and I opened the blinds and squinted into the morning light. Everything seemed too calm. It was too early for drama, but I knew it was coming when the doorbell rang, its sharp tone echoing. My heart skipped a beat as I hurried to the front window and saw the figures outside, Kevin, of course, but my parents were standing together in the driveway with him, staring up at the house with expectant, angry eyes. I knew exactly what this was about, so I took a deep breath and headed for the door, my mind racing with questions like, what were they planning, and did they think they could just show up at my door? I opened the door after everything that had happened, demanding money, and before I could say anything, Kevin rushed in, pushing past me as if he owned the place. My parents followed closely behind them, and Sarah's mom said in that familiar, critical frown, "You have to help Kevin, you promised." I didn't promise anything, so I shot back my anger before it could bubble up. You two know I wasn't going to keep helping him out, so you can't just come here and demand that I pay for his carelessness. Kevin's face flushed, and he crossed his arms. Do you think you can just leave your family like this? You owe me, you promised me you would help. I shook my head incredulously. You're a grown man, Kevin. You're 24 years old, and you've never had to work a day in your life. You can always count on me. I don't have time for this, Kevin growled, but that's the end of it. You're not going to guilt me into paying off your car loan because you're too lazy to find a job. You're supposed to help me, you said. My dad stepped forward, his face hard. Sarah. Don't be silly, you know Kevin is going through a difficult time, and you can afford to help him. You can pay it back over time, but you need to start now. I was overwhelmed by my dad, the same person whom I tried to keep my voice steady as I said, I've had it, I've been helping you all for years, and it's never enough. You take, and when I say no, you come to my door like this. Kevin let out. They had spent years telling me that my money was my money, and now wanted me to pay for Kevin's reckless decision. It's your fault that we're in this mess, Sarah. You've always been so selfish that you refused to help your family. You never even tried to help me get ahead. I thought you cared about me. The guilt trip made my stomach turn, but I wasn't falling for it. I'd seen this game before, and I wasn't going to let him trick me into doing something I knew was wrong. You don't get to talk to me like that. I've spent years helping everyone while you sat on your ass doing nothing. You've never cared about what it takes to build something for yourself. You've never once thought about what it takes for me to work hard to keep us afloat. You don't appreciate anything I've done, and you've never taken responsibility for anything. Kevin's face twisted in anger as he said, I don't have to listen to this. You're just jealous because you're stuck in your dead-end job while I'm out here trying to enjoy life. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, and he had the cheek to tell me that after everything I'd given up, all the hours I'd put in, and all the times I'd saved him from trouble, I'm done. I said, finally finding my voice, I'm not paying for the car, I'm not helping you anymore, and you know what, you're not welcome here, I need you to leave. For a moment, nobody spoke, and my mom's mouth opened and closed as if she was trying to find the right words. Kevin just stood there, his fists clenched at his sides, until my dad finally said, You're making a big mistake, Sarah. You don't know what you're doing. I'm not the one making a mistake, you're enabling him and teaching him that he can get away with this behavior, and I won't be involved with it any longer without waiting for a better opportunity. Do you think you can just abandon your family in this way? I assure you that it won't work out well, and you'll regret it. I shook my head, my hand shaking with the pent-up frustration of years of dealing with this nonsense. My reaction was to slam the door in their faces. I stood there for a few seconds, my heart racing, trying to take in everything that had just happened. The confrontation with my parents and Kevin felt like it had been building for years, and now that it was over, I wasn't sure if I should be relieved or just exhausted. I took a few deep breaths to calm myself down because the silence in the house was so loud that I could still hear nothing. I heard my parents and Kevin fighting outside, but I didn't care anymore. I was done allowing them to guilt-trip me into paying for things I would rather not pay for, allowing Kevin to be lazy, and putting myself last for their incessant demands. I went back inside, locked the door, and collapsed onto the couch. The weight of it all began to hit me in waves for years. One, to bear the family's financial burden, my parents had never truly accepted it, and Kevin had always found new ways to blame me for not doing enough, but now I felt a mixture of relief and guilt. On the one hand, I knew that this was the right choice. I had been suffocating under their expectations for so long, constantly bending. I couldn't continue to put my own life and well-being on hold to help them. I wasn't a bank or a freeloader. But on the other hand, the guilt was there. My parents had been depending on me, and Kevin was my brother. I didn't want to cut him off entirely, but I had to make him face the consequences of his behavior. He needed to understand that there were boundaries. I sat there for a while trying to make sense of it all, and then I looked at my phone. I noticed that I had a few missed calls and texts, mostly from my parents, and Kevin had gone silent, which was probably a good thing because I knew that he had made reckless decisions. I couldn't bring myself to respond just yet, not after everything that had just happened, but I knew I'd have to face them eventually because they wouldn't stop until I did, and to be honest, I wasn't sure how I would handle it when that time came. However, for now, I felt like I had made a decision. This was my life, and I should start living it for myself. I had spent too much time trying to please other people, putting their needs ahead of mine, and it wasn't working, so my parents could continue to act entitled in his self-destructive behavior, but I was determined to do things differently from now on, so here I am, trying to move on and make sense of everything, but I still question if I made the right decision. Should I have given them a final favor? Or if this was the only way I could finally get away from their incessant demands? I'm interested to know what other people think. Have any of you been in a similar situation? If so, how did you handle it? Manage it? Did you ever need to decide whether to break contact with family or to defend yourself when they push too far? Please share your ideas with me. Would benefit from some guidance.